Hey everyone, my name is Ryan and I'm with Perusall Support, and today I'm going to walk you through how to make a Fishbowl review assignment. So this is one of our new assignment types, and what it does for you is it allows you to take students and split them into two groups, one of which will be your submitters. They are responsible for submitting an original piece of work, and then you will have your reviewer group who gets to then come in and kind of like on the outside of a fishbowl, review that assignment, provide feedback via rubrics or overall feedback or in-text comments, and then at the end, the original submission author can come back and see how they've done. So you will come to your course home, assignments, and then you will do add assignment, fishbowl assignment. From here, you will see these various steps. So it's very important that we follow these in order. However, some of them are kind of related from top to bottom, and you'll see that in a moment. So the assignment name, I'll just go ahead and do test for now. So my student work submission deadline is going to relate specifically to the students assigned to upload materials. So in this case, I'll go ahead and I'll upload one student to assign because I have a small class of 3. The other 2 will review this. From here, I will create a student work submission deadline. So this relates to that one student who will now have to submit their work by tomorrow, by the end of the day. And you can refer to our documentation on Fishbowl or review-based assignments to see what kind of submissions are accepted. So then from there, once that is submitted and that deadline has passed, you will see a student review deadline. This is for the other 2 students here, the ones who are going to be responsible for reviewing or whoever you determine will review, which you can kind of do on this options page here if you want a more precise review pool. I'm going to go ahead and select a cascading series of deadlines. They need to follow each other. And at this point, these students must fill out the rubric, they need to leave general feedback, and they also need to leave in-text comments, similar to what they would do in a normal PDF or book assignment that you have in Perusall. The only reason they would not do a rubric is if you choose for them not to fill out a rubric, and the only reason they would not provide overall feedback is if you choose for them not to provide overall feedback. You may also select both. You'll notice when you select this one that the rubric option up here just disappeared. I'm going to leave that because I want to show you the rubric process. From there, you will see the end of instructor review period. So once this deadline passes, now the instructor jumps in and gets to give their own feedback. Do they feel that the reviews were fair? If they feel a review was not fair, they can actually omit it from the grade. If you do not want to jump in as an instructor and provide maybe some comments or look over the reviews, you can omit this step altogether. However, I'm going to select a deadline because I will show you this process later. End of day. Okay. From there, we have the author review and response deadline. So essentially, this person who submitted, they submit and then they wait through these 2 because again, they're not reviewing. All they were responsible for is submitting. However, they are responsible for responding to whatever their reviewers said, whether that's instructors or other students. So they will go in, they'll read how they did on the rubric, overall feedback, and they will also type responses to their classmates. Thank you so much for the feedback, or, oh, I see where I can improve, things of that nature. Again, this needs to be a series of cascading deadlines that fall after each other. If this doesn't matter much to you and you're like, oh, I just want this assignment to end, I'm not really worried about the author going in and replying, I just want them to read it, you could put this a minute after the last deadline. That's up to you. Next step is going to be rubrics. Here you can select an existing rubric for Fishbowl assignments if you've already created one, or you can create a brand new rubric. You can add criteria on here. You can go ahead and type in what you want that to be, and then you can also give a description of what that means at this place in these spaces here, whether that's few mistakes, many mistakes, and then your point values. I will go ahead and select the rubric that I've already created. If I wanted to edit that, I would click this button here and it would create a new tab, and it would allow me to edit that rubric at that point. My next step, I can add instructions for students. I can add a visibility date. I can also assign to specific students. Now remember, if you specify the students you're assigning this to, make sure to include the students that are responsible for submitting. Because if you leave them out, then they will not realize that they needed to submit, even though you selected them on this first page here. I'm going to assign to entire class. Here, you can choose if it's going to be an optional assignment or if you don't want to remind students of the assignment, if you want more accountability. Next step is scoring. You will notice on this page here that it's a total of 200%. That's because you have two categories here. You have submitters, they receive 100%, and you have reviewers, and they will receive 100%, or a potential for 100%. Again, if you're not too concerned about these in-text comments that the author will provide at the end of the whole process, you can go ahead into your general settings, scoring, go to your rubrics or to your scoring templates, and you can go ahead and edit that there under actions edit. And you could drop this down to 10% or 0, but then you need to make sure you account for those scores somewhere else in the process. That goes the same for reviewers. If you're not going to include a rubric in your process, then we need to make sure that we account for the score over here by turning this to 100 and changing this down to 0. That is the entire setup process for this assignment. So it's a little bit more lengthy just because you have multiple moving parts. However, it's very manageable, and if you have any questions for that, just make sure to reach out to us via the Get Help within your account and reach out to support. Now I'm going to show you kind of this assignment type in process. So I'm going to exit out of the assignment test that I was making and show you one that I've already created. The student work submission deadline. This is when your assigned student must submit their original document. I've already uploaded the test for my student here, and you can open and you can say that this assignment is currently in the submission phase and awaiting student submissions. So you can see, I'll go ahead and delete this just for the sake of processing. The reason it showed me that page is because the deadline has not passed and that student has the opportunity to resubmit. I will add on behalf of that student here just to show you that you are also able to do this in the case that a student is having some problems and you want to submit for them. You will see now that you have this processing page here. And again, you will see an orange line here until it turns green. And once it's green, you know that it has successfully submitted. Let's go ahead and jump into the student review deadline. Here you can see that my reviewer is assigned to the submission author. So I can preview submissions here to see, okay, great. Ryan submitted successfully. This is what that document looks like. If I need, I can take notes over here. I will go back to my course home. I will go back to student review deadline, and I will go ahead and check on what Ronaldo has done at this point to see if Ronaldo's been active, right? So let's go ahead to this point here. I can see that Ronaldo's been pretty active. So that student has submitted their rubric. They have also submitted their overall feedback. And because I'm requiring students to make those in-text comments, they've also submitted some in-text comments here. And I can view those by simply clicking on each of the comments that Ronaldo has left. And those are examples for you. So now back to the course homepage. Again, if you were omitting the rubric, you wouldn't have seen that rubric there. If you were omitting the general feedback, you wouldn't have seen that there. Now jumping into the next step. Actually, before I go there, I'll let you know, you can edit reviewers and add reviewers via this process here. I don't have enough students in this course. There's not really much for me to do here. However, if I had more, I would drop down here and I would add that reviewer via that process. Now I will go into the instructor review period. This is when you as the instructor get to jump in and you get to check on how Ronaldo has done reviewing Ryan's work. You'll press open and you will see, okay, so again, I see that same rubric scoring here. I see this overall feedback. I can decide, do I want to include this or do I want to suppress this or do I want to hide it altogether from the author but still include it in the score for that reviewer? I can also see some comments that the student has made, and I can also respond directly to the student. Now, this student will also be able to check this response, and when it gets to the final stage, the reviewer will also, or the original submitter will also see this response. You can see all here. There we go. So then on our course homepage, I can then check out my author review and response deadline. This is when the submission author is able to come back in and see what has taken place. They will be able to see their score via the rubric. They'll be able to see their overall feedback, and they will be able to see the comments that the instructor left and that their classmate left. At this point, they would respond in order to receive full credit based off of the scoring template that I used for this assignment. My sample right here would not give them much credit because it's not very thorough. However, this sample up here might give a little bit more credit because it is more thorough. It'll be automatically graded based off the same algorithm that we use for typical assignments or standard assignments. So that is the entire Fishbowl process. So again, the student who's submitting comes back at the end, the reviewers check in on that submission, and they also can respond at the end, and the instructor can kind of oversee the entire thing throughout, and they can also provide responses. Thank you so much. If you're interested in learning more, we will have some resources in the description of this video, or you can go ahead to get help within your account, which is up at the top, and you can go ahead and contact Perusall support via this method, and we are happy to answer your questions about this new assignment type or receive any feedback on how we can improve it. Bye.